This is Ancient NBA, Episode 4, the 1960 Finals. Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics just swept the Lakers in last year's Finals for their second championship win in 3 years. Bill Russell and Red Auerbach are starting their mountainous climb to become the greatest basketball dynasty there's ever been. But the Celtics would have to deal with one of the greatest obstacles basketball will ever see, because the Philadelphia Warriors just drafted a man named Wilt Chamberlain. The whole country had their eyes on Wilt, as he'd skipped the last 2 years of college playing for the Kansas Jayhawks, taking his talents to the Harlem Globetrotters. This had never been done before, and the hype around Chamberlain was immense. The league didn't know what to expect, other than that he'd be able to hang in the NBA. But what Chamberlain does his rookie year will be remembered forever. Last year, the Warriors had finished last in the Eastern Division at 32-40. Not a horrible team, but they definitely needed some help. Chamberlain would give them more than that, averaging 37 points, 27 rebounds, playing nearly every minute of every single game. He broke 8 records as a rookie, becoming the first player in NBA history to average more than 30 points a game. Chamberlain was voted most valuable player as a rookie. He was so dominant both offensively and defensively, the league was now looking at Philadelphia as possible finals favorites. Bill Russell and Red Auerbach knew their team was better than one man, but Russell had been the best player in the league since he'd entered. That was no longer the case, as Chamberlain was personally rewriting the record book in just 1 year. Wilt single-handedly improved his Warriors to 49-26 on the season, good enough for second in the Eastern Division. He was unstoppable, the first to successfully use the jump fade. Nobody could guard him. He was way too strong. Bill Russell was the greatest defensive player the game had ever seen, and that on top of having a stacked team of Hall of Famers kept the Celtics on top of the league with a record of 59-16. And although Philly finished second in the East, Wilt was looking like he could be the greatest offensive player ever. Meanwhile, out west, the Lakers were regrouping. From last place in the league to a finals appearance last year, they knew Elgin Baylor was their guy. They just have to build around him, as the firepower from Boston was too hot for the Lakers to handle. As the Lakers regroup, so does St. Louis, who had been burned by Minneapolis last year in the Western Division Finals. Bob Pettit was determined to get back, as he had the Hawks looking like a dynasty there for a few years, beating Boston in the 1958 Finals. St. Louis stays on top of the West with a record of 46-29, while Minneapolis slips to third place with a record worse than last year, 25-50, and even fewer fans were showing up now. The Lakers were working on building around Baylor, but that takes time, and in round 1 of the playoffs, the Lakers faced the Detroit Pistons again. Minneapolis had owned the Pistons throughout the 50s. They'd beaten Detroit several times over the years to advance in the playoffs. But this year, Detroit was second in the West. But Elgin Baylor didn't care. It's the Pistons. So he gets the Broom Mountain sweeps them 2-0 in the first round. This would be the second year in a row the Lakers would face St. Louis in the Western Division Finals, where this year, all that was on Pettit's mind was revenge. But back east, Boston was getting ready to match up against ball god Wilt Chamberlain and his Philadelphia Warriors. Philly beat the Syracuse Nationals 2-1 in the first round, and the rivalry has officially begun between the league's 2 best players, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Russell wasn't worried, because when you're psychopathic about winning, fear doesn't exist. But Chamberlain wasn't scared of the league's best defense, because the Celtics couldn't even think about defending him. He dropped 42 points in Game 1 of the Eastern Division Finals. Wilt also grabbed 29 boards, but Bill would beat him with 30 rebounds. And on top of the 9 rebound average Boston had, they also had scoring depth. 4 guys scored 19 or more for the Celtics, and they take Game 1 111-105. Wilt was pretty much carrying Philly in the scoring department. The second leading scorer was Paul Arizin. I'm really not sure how to say that name, bro. Sorry, Paul. Paul would also be a Hall of Famer one day, but the Celtics had Hall of Famers. They could let Wilt do what he was going to do while shutting down everybody else. This Philly team was really good. They had 4 Hall of Famers: Arizin, Chamberlain, Tom Gola, Guy Rogers, but their main guy was a rookie. And against the best team basketball had ever seen, they were just no match for Boston. This year, anyway. Philly wins 2 games in the series, but in the end, Boston prevails and are heading to their 4th straight NBA Finals. The league wasn't the least bit surprised. As Bill Russell and Red Auerbach tried to keep their dynasty moving, they would wait for the Western Finals contender, which was between the Lakers and the Hawks. Elgin Baylor had figured out how to win as a rookie last year, but was swept by Boston in the finals. He wanted to erase the pain of Boston's broom and get revenge on Bill Russell, but Bob Pettit had been bounced by Baylor last year, and he too was looking for revenge. The last time they made it to the finals, they beat Boston in 6 games, but Bill Russell's ankle injury kept him from playing after Game 3. Pettit wanted another chance at beating Boston full strength. He comes out in Game 1 grabbing 19 boards and 23 points, as Cliff Hagan leads the team with 29, beating the Lakers in Game 1. But Baylor had more help this time with scoring, as 5 guys score 14 or more. Even though they lost, they knew they could get it done against St. Louis. And in Game 2, Elgin Baylor goes off, dropping 40 points and 14 rebounds to grab the Game 2 win in St. Louis. The Hawks had lost, but last year they'd picked up former Laker and future Hall of Famer Clyde Lovellette, who led the team in scoring with 30 points in Game 2. Bob Pettit wasn't having it this year. He wanted another ring, and heading back to Minneapolis for Game 3, he drops 35 and 16 rebounds as the Hawks overwhelmed the Lakers with defense. Baylor dropped 27 this game and had a lot of help, but Pettit was a veteran who had developed his winning mentality over the years to rival Bill Russell's psychopathy. But Elgin Baylor had a winning mentality too, and in Game 4, he again torches the Hawks with 39 points. Pettit was less aggressive shooting the ball this game, but dropped 20, while the rest of his team went off. It wasn't quite enough, as they lose to the Lakers by just 2 points. So we go back to St. Louis, all tied up. Elgin Baylor tries to change that with 40 points, and the Lakers push Game 5 into overtime. Bob Pettit has a rough shooting night, and the Hawks drop the game by 7. Pettit's worst nightmare was now possible. His team was down 3-2, and he didn't want a repeat of last year, losing in the Western Division Finals. So he cleans up his shooting, going 55% from the field and dropping 30 points. He had also lit a fire under his team, as Hagan and Lovellette each had 29. Baylor led the game with 38 points, but his team couldn't score well in Game 6, and they lose by 21. So it's back to St. Louis for a Game 7, where Bob Pettit likes to show people what the game is all about: winning. He drops 28 points on the game, and the Hawks play great defense, holding Minneapolis to just 32% shooting. Baylor had 33 points, but couldn't shoot the ball well, and the Lakers lose Game 7 by 11. Bob Pettit had done it. He willed his team back to the NBA Finals for a rematch against Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics. Red Auerbach knew this would be a tough matchup, as Bob Pettit had the Hawks on fire and ready to win their second chip against the Celtics. Bill Russell knew how to light fires too, and in Game 1, his team erupts, scoring 140 points. 7 guys scored 11 or more for Boston, as they take Game 1 by 18 points. Pettit and the Hawks had been hit in the mouth, but they had just been through a Game 7 series. He knew his team was tired, but that was no excuse. He knew they were capable of grabbing a dub in Boston, and in Game 2, it's exactly what he'd do, dropping 35 and cleaning up their defense, holding the Celtics to 36% shooting on the game. Bill Russell had 40 rebounds, but it wasn't enough, and they dropped Game 2 in Boston. Now, tied up, we head back to St. Louis, who had just hit Boston in the mouth. The league could tell this was going to be a good series. And in Game 3, Boston's scoring came back, as 5 guys scored 10 or more. Bill Russell again leads the game in rebounds with 19. And although St. Louis beat Boston on the boards, they couldn't handle Boston's defense, scoring just 86 points, as the Celtics take Game 3 by 16. Pettit knew this was going to be a grueling series, but it didn't matter. His team would have to find a way to get a win before heading back to Boston. And in Game 4, he dropped 32 points, leading the game. The Hawks shot an awesome 46% from the field this game, as Boston couldn't hit anything. They dropped Game 4, as the Hawks tied the series up 2-2. Bill Russell still wasn't worried. He knew his team was better, and that he was more psychopathic about winning than Pettit. Back to Boston for Game 5. Russell grabs 26 boards as Tom Heinsohn goes off with 34 points. The Celtics had hit their scoring stride again this game with 127 points as a team. They beat St. Louis by 25 points. Bob Pettit knew his team wasn't on life support, but they were down 3-2 to the best team ever assembled. Game 6 in St. Louis would have to be immaculate for them to hold off Boston from closing out the series. The Hawks come out with defense on their mind, holding Boston scoring to 35% from the field this game. This was essential to their survival, as they knew it was going to be hard to keep up with the flame-throwing Celtics. Pettit goes for 25, Cy Green drops 21 after just 3 points from Green in Game 5. The Hawks beat Bill Russell's Celtics in St. Louis, and while Pettit was relieved his team was still alive, he wasn't sure how much the team had left after having already gone through a 7-game series in the West's finals. Bill Russell wasn't happy. He knew his team was better than allowing a 7th game, but it is what it is, and the 1960 NBA championship would be decided in Boston. He knew his team was capable of flames, and that's what he expected in this finals elimination. Bob Pettit motivated his Hawks with 22 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 assists, as 5 other guys score 11 or more. As a team, they were incredibly efficient, shooting 46% from the field, but the other team had Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, Tom Heinsohn, all who had great games, as the Celtics have 5 guys with 18 points or more, and the Celtics in the 1960 NBA season with their 3rd ever title, the 2nd against St. Louis, who had been to the finals 3 of the last 4 years. Devastated, Bob Pettit returned home, quickly getting back to work to try again next year. He knew his team could find a way to beat Boston, they just have to prove it. Meanwhile, the Minneapolis Lakers had been bounced from the Western Division Finals in 7 games. After a 3rd-place finish with a losing record, fans weren't coming to games as often, which led to financial issues. So Minneapolis packed up their players and moved the franchise to Los Angeles. A fresh start for Elgin Baylor to regroup, with the hope of becoming a dynasty again. And with the 2nd pick in the 1960 NBA draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Jerry West. Next year, they would try again to establish the former glory they'd achieved back in the late 40s and the mid-50s. You can find out what the Lakers do in the 1960-61 season next week in episode 5 of Ancient NBA. Thank y'all so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm trying to work on this series, get the quality up on it. We fixed the audio, thank goodness. But other than that, tell me what you think. Follow me on Twitter if you're on there. I'm always posting stuff over there. Also, shout out Spa World, as we always do. Check out his NBA Wrapped series. If you like NBA history, you'll love NBA Wrapped. It's really cool. Other than that, man, if you like the series, subscribe for more. I'll try to get these out every 2 weeks or so. I'm about to go back to work, so I'm not going to have as much time to edit, but I will get these out as often as I can. But thanks y'all for watching. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Appreciate you.